Do you know, my brother, the creation story of our people?
No.
Before there was time, there was only the Great Spirit. The wise one hummed the stars and began to dance.
Oh, yep, here we go. We're running it back. Alright, bet.
Yeah. Next came Grandfather's son, bringing light to the earth. Mother Earth had brought life to itself. And then suddenly there was a great shock of lightning. And from the mud, where the lightning struck, the red mud, came the first man, Glooskap. Now Glooskap was a wise man, and he was charged with naming all the animals of the earth. The second bolt struck, and Glooskap was given his eyes. He smelled the pine, and he heard the wind. When the third bolt struck, Glooskap stood up. He turned the four directions, north, south, east, and west. He looked out to the sky, he looked to the ground, and he looked inside of his own heart. He gave thanks to the 7 sacred directions. But Glooskap, he was alone. So Creator took dew from a heated rock, and from that dew, an old woman appeared. She was Nogami, the grandmother. She brought the wisdom of the earth, and she taught him how to survive. Next, from the white foam of the ocean, a young boy ran ashore. He was the nephew, bringing gift of vision and youth. And finally, from a beautiful green leaf, a woman stepped forward. She was Mother, bringing love, kindness, and the colors of the world. Together, tell me, my brothers, do you know the story of the first moose?
I do not.
I don't.
After the first family was formed, the Mi'kmaq, they faced a harsh winter. The winter befalled over the land, and the people had slowly begun to starve. Creator, he looked down on the Mi'kmaq, and he saw their emaciated bodies, and he knew he had to step in. So he sent the first moose onto the land, and the moose, it fed the people for the entire winter.
Hey, enough with the pipe, man.
And in the morning, when they come on the spring, they looked, and the thousands of the moose, the thousands of the bison were laid by Creator, laid by Mother Earth, to sustain us for time immemorial. At least till the white man comes and kills them all in like 10 years.
This is what we pay.
Leave the witch doctor alone. He's gonna get his grandma.
Alright.
My grandmother is ill. She tells me of stories of the Bear Man, brother. Do you know of the Bear Man?
I want to know more. Stop humping the story.
Long ago,
Go away.
many generations after the time of Glooskap, there was a boy in the Mi'kmaq nation, and he was covered head to toe in hair. The other tribal boys, they made fun of him, and they threw rocks at him, and they made sure that he knew he was not welcome. Now grandmother, Nugami, she saw the writing on the wall, and she knew this boy would be outcast from society. So she taught him how to live in the woods. And it is said to this day that you can still find the spirit of the Bear Man in the woods, and that if you look real slowly behind you, the Bear Man still lurks, wishing to talk to you, but too afraid to join you. I have seen him, brother. I have seen the Bear Man.
That's incredible. Certainly know how to command an audience, though.
The only thing I know how to command is homeless white man to pay 50 cents for a loose cigarette.
I'll give you $1.
Tell me, white man,
Really?
do you know the story of how the rabbit has gotten his ears?
Now, boys, sit down.
You must tell
Time
me.
with Kalibur.
A long time ago, when the world was brand new, Rabbit did not look the way he does now. He had a long fluffy tail and short tiny ears like that of a mouse. But Rabbit, you see, he was a trickster. Worse than that, Rabbit was bored. One sunny afternoon, Rabbit ran up to Beaver, shaking with fear. "Beaver, Beaver," he cried, "have you heard the terrible news? The great spirit Glooskap is angry. Today the sun will set and will never rise again. Eternal darkness is coming." Beaver gasped. He swam over to tell Bear, and Bear ran to tell Deer. Deer sprinted to tell Badger. Soon, all of the forest was in a frenzy, knocking over trees, hoarding berries, and building shelter in wild panic. Meanwhile, Rabbit hid behind a bush, holding his belly and laughing hysterically at the chaos he had caused. Now the great spirit Glooskap, he looked down at the forest. He saw the animals running in circles, and he saw the panic. He walked into the woods and called a great meeting. "Why are you all hiding?" he asked. Beaver spoke up with a trembling voice. "Because the sun is never coming back." Glooskap frowned. "Who told you this lie?" And the animals looked at each other. Bear pointed at Deer, Deer pointed at Beaver, and Beaver pointed right towards the bushes. Glooskap walked. Rabbit was inside, shaking with fear now, holding tightly to a massive rock so he would not be found. Glooskap reached his giant hand deep into the branches. He felt around until he grabbed hold of Rabbit, right by his tiny short ears. "Come out, Rabbit," Glooskap commanded. But Rabbit refused to let go of the rock. He squeezed, his eyes shut, and pulled down with all of his might. And Glooskap pulled up. Rabbit held down, and Glooskap pulled harder. Until stretch, with a loud pop, Rabbit finally let go of the rock and flew out of the bush. He landed on the grass and looked at his reflection in the river. His tiny ears were gone. In place were two massive, long, floppy stretched ears high above his head. Glooskap looked down at the trickster and said, "From now on your ears will stay long. They will remind you never to spread lies, and they will help you listen carefully to the truth." And that is why, to this day, rabbits have very long ears, my brothers.
Wow.
Another.
What a story.
I will impart one final knowledge upon you,
While we protect you.
but it is the last story I have in my
There
arsenal.
was a grenade there.
Tell me, my brothers, do you know the story of the ice-hearted giant?
No, mate, I don't know.
You see,
No.
in the coldest months of winter, the wind does not just blow. You know as well as I do, it howls. The old people say that the howling wind lives the Chinoo. A Chinoo was once a human being, but they allowed anger, greed, and hatred to fill their soul.
Brothers in arms, come on.
They grew into a towering giant with teeth like stone, claws like flint, and a hunger that never ended. One evening, a Mi'kmaq man and his wife were alone in their wigwam, a teepee, far out in the woods. Suddenly the tree snapped, the ground shook,
We shall not
and
fall
through the
back.
branches stepped a massive, startling Chinoo.
I think the team needs to pull their
Its
finger
eyes burned with a terrible frozen rage.
The walls will protect
The
us,
husband
storyteller.
knew they could not outrun it. The Chinoo was a mighty beast, and the husband knew that he could not outrun it. He had to fight, and he had to use his wits. Instead of screaming, the husband smiled. He walked right out into the snow. "Grandfather," he called out joyfully, "you have finally arrived. We have been waiting for you." The Chinoo stopped and blinked its heavy icy eyes. No one had ever called it grandfather, and no one ever had smiled at it before, so it was confused. The wife ran outside and brought out a warm fur blanket, and she wrapped it around the giant's frozen shoulders. "Come inside, grandfather," she said softly. "Sit by our fire and eat with us." The giant hesitated, but the warmth of the words had pulled him in. He squeezed his massive body into the wigwam and sat by the crackling fire. The couple treated him with absolute respect, and they gave him the best meat, and they spoke to him with love. But the Chinoo's heart was still full of ice, and the fire made him sick. He began to sweat, groan, and shake. The husband knew what was happening. The warmth of the fire, and the warmth of their kindness, was fighting the ice inside of the monster's chest.
I fucking love this game.
"Drink this, grandfather," husband said, and handed him a whole bowl of hot, melted bear fat. When Chinoo drank it down, he roared a terrible, agonizing roar that shook the snow off the trees. He began to cough violently. He coughed once, and once again, and then clink. Out of the giant's mouth fell a sharp, jagged piece of ice. It was his frozen heart, melted by the heat of the fire and the love of the family. The giant gasped, and his stone teeth shrank, and his sharp claws disappeared. When he looked down at his hands, and when he looked up at the couple, the anger was gone from his eyes, brothers, and he was human once more.
This man is a legend.
And that is how the love of the couple and kindness has melted the heart of the giant. We are going to die now. Now tell me, brothers, do you know of the giant beavers of the past, and how the Bay of Fundy was formed in East Coast Canada?
No, I can't say I do.
Once upon a time, there was a great battle between Glooskap and a giant beaver. And I will tell it to you best I can. Long ago, when the world was young, the animals were much larger than they are today. The biggest of the stubborn of them all was the giant beaver. Beaver wanted to build the greatest home the world has ever seen, so he swam to the mouth of the Great Bay. He cut down massive trees with his razor-sharp teeth. He piled mud, rocks, and logs higher and higher, building a colossal dam that lay across the water. But the beaver did not care about anyone else. His massive dam blocked the rivers. The water began to rise, flooding the valleys. The Mi'kmaq people watched as their hunting grounds disappeared under the dark, rising tide. They had no food, and they had no dry land. Glooskap heard his people. He strode across the mountains and stood at the edge of the water. He looked down at the massive dam and called out, "Beaver, you must break this dam. The water is drowning the land." Glooskap, but the giant beaver was proud. The giant beaver did not want to move it. Oh, fuck!
Don't question it.
You must avenge, brother. You must avenge, brother.